بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Today we will be discussing on whom is Qurbani necessary. Qurbani is offered during the days of Qurbani, and the days of Qurbani are the 10th or the 11th or the 12th of Dhul Hijjah. If a person can't sacrifice an animal on the 10th, then they have the option to slaughter it on the 11th. If that's not possible, then on the 12th. But the Maghrib, the sunset time at 12 will be the cutoff time. So it is wajib, necessary to slaughter a Qurbani animal during these timings and during these days if a person ticks the following 4 boxes. The person must be sane. Qurbani is not necessary on a majnoon, on an insane person. He's not held responsible. Secondly, the person must have reached maturity, bulugh, whichever means that is by. Hence, Qurbani is not necessary on minor children, non-baligh children. Thirdly, the person must possess enough wealth equivalent to the nisab. Now, the difference between Qurbani and zakat is that for zakat to be obligatory on an individual, they must have money equivalent to nisab at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. However, as for the Qurbani, it is not a requirement to possess and have enough wealth from the beginning of the year. In fact, even if a person had nothing at all and one day before the day of Qurbani, let's say the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, a person possesses enough wealth equivalent to the nisab, then Qurbani is necessary. Secondly, zakat is only obligatory on certain assets such as gold, silver, trade assets and cash. However, Qurbani is necessary on a person who possesses not necessary cash, money, but any possessions which are equivalent to nisab and above the person's basic necessities. And fourthly, Qurbani is necessary on a non-traveler, a muqim. If a person is traveling and is classified as a musafir in terms of sharia, then Qurbani is not necessary. So it's not wajib on an insane person, a minor, a poor person, or a musafir. However, if one of these individuals did perform Qurbani, or the Qurbani was performed on their behalf, many individuals ask whether Qurbani is necessary on young children. If they are at the age of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, if they are not baligh, Qurbani is not necessary. However, if the parents deem it appropriate and if they perform Qurbani on behalf of their child, then it is praiseworthy. It will be rewarding. Now, although it is not necessary on these individuals to perform Qurbani, if they now purchase an animal with the intention of Qurbani, because of some passion, desire, hope, then it is now necessary and wajib for them to make the Qurbani of that very animal. If these individuals on whom it's not necessary to slaughter the animal do sacrifice an animal voluntarily, and then within the days of sacrifice, the musafir, the traveler, returns home, becomes a muqim. The nabalig, the non-balig child becomes a balig. The poor individual now receives enough money to reach the nisab level. Now it will be necessary, as long as they fulfill that requirement before the sunset of the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, for them now to perform Qurbani. And if they had performed a Qurbani before this, it will be classified as nafal and they will be obliged to make another wajib, Qurbani. As we said before, it's not obligatory on the individual or the people, the parents, to perform Qurbani on behalf of their children. But it'll be recommended and it's a good practice. But what's important is when the father, for example, does execute Qurbani on behalf of the child, then it must be from his own wealth and not the wealth of the children. Also, a number of individuals ask a question whether they can perform Qurbani or pay for Qurbani on behalf of XYZ, their spouse, their parents, their children, their friends, their associates, their siblings. That is all fine as long as it's with their consent, with their permission. Or if it is generally understood between the spouses that the husband pays for the Qurbani and makes the agreement of the Qurbani on behalf of the wife. However, Nafal Qurbani doesn't require to inform the other. If a person makes a Qurbani on behalf of someone else, if it's Nafal, voluntary, then that's fine. If it's a wajib Qurbani and without their consent, without informing them, then their Qurbani will be invalid. In fact, if it's a large animal in which 7 people can have their shares, none of their Qurbani will be valid. The next issue is, if the Qurbani animal is lost or it dies. Now, if it's a person on whom Qurbani wasn't necessary at all, now upon purchasing the Qurbani animal, it becomes specified. Now, if it's lost or it dies, then they're not obliged to buy another animal. However, if they buy another animal, they will have to slaughter the other. And if perchance, if they were to find the previous animal, they will have to slaughter both the animals. However, if a person is required to perform Qurbani and his animal is lost, his animal dies, or there is a defect in his animal, then it's important to purchase another animal and to perform Qurbani of it. If, let's say, after a few days, they discover the lost animal, then they're not obliged to slaughter both the animals, but slaughter any one. And if they happen to slaughter the cheapest out of the two, then the difference should be given in charity. A famous question is, people ask about clipping the nails and cutting the hair during the first few days of Dhul Hijjah. This is not wajib or farz, it is mustahab for a person intending to perform Qurbani not to remove the hair, clip the nails from the moment Dhul Hijjah sets in until Qurbani animal has been slaughtered on their behalf. And this is important because it may well be that the person has performed Eid al-Salah, it's their Eid day, it's the 10th of Dhul Hijjah. However, the arrangements of their Qurbani have been made in another country and the animal will be slaughtered the next day on our 11th. So then the person will have to refrain from cutting the hair, clipping the nails until their individual Qurbani has been performed. But yet again, this mas'ala is of mustahab. A person will not be sinful if they happen to remove their hair or clip their nails within this time. The next question is, what is Qurbani? The literal meaning of Qurbani is to offer a sacrifice. But the technical term is that it's to sacrifice and slaughter an animal as an act of ibadah, as an act of worship during those stipulated days, 11th, 12th, and 10, 11, 12, these 3 days. From the morning of the 10 till the evening, the sunset of the 12th. It will not suffice to give any price of an animal in charity. Even if a person was to give the price of 10 animals or give £1,000 or £1,000,000, it will not suffice to iraqatud dam, spilling the blood of an animal. This is a particular ibadat, a particular worship ordained by Allah. So when must this animal be slaughtered? What is the required time within which the animal must be slaughtered? From the 10th of Dhul Hijjah till the Maghrib, the sunset of 12th of Dhul Hijjah. So we have up to 3 days to offer this sacrifice. So a person may sacrifice on the 10th, which is obviously the best form, the earlier. If this is not possible, then on the 11th. If that's not possible, on the 12th. Now, what's the beginning time? Well, there's a difference. If the animal is to be slaughtered in a farm or village where there is no Salatul Eid, then the Qurbani animal could be slaughtered any time after Subh Sadiq, after the Fajr beginning time of 10th. However, if the animal will be slaughtered in a city or a town where there is an Eid Salah, then it must be slaughtered any time but after the Eid Salah. Now, it's not necessary for the individual to have performed Eid Salah. As long as the Eid Salah is performed at any one place throughout the whole city or town, it suffices to start slaughtering the animals. So that was the beginning time. And the person can slaughter it on the morning of 10, in the evening of 10, it could be during the day or during the night, and the 11th or 12th. But it will only be valid if it's done so before the sunset of the 12th of Dhul Hijjah. It is impermissible for a person living in the city or town where Eid Salah is observed to perform Qurbani, even if it's after Fajr beginning time, but if it's before the Eid Salah. The Qurbani performed immediately after Eid Salah and before the Eid Khutbah will be valid, although it's not a good practice. If the Imam leads the Jama'at and Eid Salah and afterwards realizes he didn't have wudu, he didn't have ablution, then the Eid Salah is not required to be repeated if the Jama'at, if the congregation has dispersed, and only afterwards the Imam realizes mistake. If the Imam realizes mistake immediately afterwards and the congregation Jama'at has not dispersed, then they will repeat the Eid Salah. However, what if a person was amongst them and he rushed after Eid Salah, even before khutbah, even before hearing about the mistake on behalf of the Imam? Will the Qurbani now be valid or not? Many scholars have said it will be valid. Now, if it is not possible for the people in the city to observe the Eid Salah on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, then the people should not slaughter any animals until midday Zawal. After Zawal, even though they will not have performed Eid Salah, now they can slaughter the animal at any time. Because it's possible that for some reason, if they did not observe Eid Salah on the 10th, they could do that at 11th or on the 12th as well. However, those living in the villages or farms where there is no Eid Salah may slaughter the Qurbani animal straight after Subh Sadiq. Now, they don't need to wait for Eid Salah or not. Similarly, if a person living in the city has sent his animal to the village or the farm to be slaughtered, then the Qurbani animal could be slaughtered anytime after Subh Sadiq, because due consideration is given to where the animal is than where the actual person is. But this is as long as the Subh Sadiq of the 10th of Dhul Hijjah has appeared in the city where the person is living. So although the Qurbani is valid from after the time of Subh Sadiq, it's still better to delay the Qurbani in the village for after the sun has risen. Now, Qurbani was necessary on someone. For some reason, he never performed it on the 10th, never performed it on the 11th, and now the sunset of 12th Dhul Hijjah has transpired. What must he do now? Is there a qada? Can he compensate for the loss? Well, no. A person can sacrifice hundreds of animals afterwards, but it will not compensate for the fact that he was unable to, he failed to perform Qurbani within the set number of days. So what will he do now? If he had purchased an animal from before, then he must give the animal alive without slaughtering it to the poor and needy. If he had not purchased an animal yet, then he will give money equivalent to the goat or sheep in sadaqah for the poor and needy. Otherwise, to slaughter the animal cannot in any way substitute the actual Qurbani. And the last question, which is quite important as well, is that many of us may assign someone else to perform Qurbani on our behalf who resides in a total different country. For example, the person is living in England, yet he's assigned someone to perform the Qurbani in Pakistan, in India, in Bangladesh, in any other country. So now there is a difference of opinion that who do we consider? Do we consider the place where the animal is, where it will be slaughtered, or where the person is residing? Because it's possible that the days of Dhul Hijjah may not correspond. When it is our 10th of Dhul Hijjah, it may well be the 9th in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. When it is our 11th, it may be their 10th. So will we consider the animal, or the place of where the animal is and it will be slaughtered, or the person? So for example, if we consider the person, then it may well be that ours is the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, and if our animal is being slaughtered, it could well be slaughtered in India, where really it's only 9th. So it's not even the set days of the Qurbani animal being slaughtered yet there. But if the consideration of the person is taken, then it should be valid. But then the problem is there, it's not even the days of Qurbani. And the other way around, it may well be if that, for example, we may have entered the 12th of Dhul Hijjah, and what if there's this 12th and they've delayed our Qurbani and they're slaughtering on the 12th? Now that's problematic because we've moved out of the considered days now. It's the 13th, but yet according to them, it'd be valid. So that's if you assume that we'll take the consideration of the animal. So if the person delegates to sacrifice an animal in another country, then the animal must be slaughtered on the days which is amongst the days of sacrifice for both the countries. The place, the country where the individual is on behalf of whom the Qurbani is done, and the country where the animal is and it'll be slaughtered. So for example, the animal should not be slaughtered on our 10th, because whilst it will be our 10th of Dhul Hijjah, where the animal is, it's still 9th. So it doesn't correspond. It's not amongst the days of sacrifice. So what makes sense is that if the animal is slaughtered on our 11th, because if it's our 11th, then it'll be their 10th. So whether we take into consideration where the animal is, i.e. the India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, or where the individual is in the UK, it'll still be within the days of Qurbani. Similarly, if it's the 12th of Dhul Hijjah and they were to sacrifice on the 11th there, that's fine as well, because we're still within the days of Qurbani. Now the problem is, if the Qurbani animal is slaughtered after our 12th sunset or on the 13th, although it may be the days of sacrifice for them, it will not be for us. Hence, it must be ensured that the animal is slaughtered on a day which is amongst the days of a sacrifice. Furthermore, the animal should be slaughtered only after Subh Sadiq. If it's in a village or farm, it'll be slaughtered in, or the Eid Salah if it's slaughtered in a city, in the place where the animal is. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.